We're in the midst of the holiday season, the Christmas season here in the United States, of course, in all other parts of the world. And a news item caught my attention this morning that is kind of a jarring note in the midst of what is to be a religious holiday, the biggest religious holiday of the year. The Pew Research Center, which annually and regularly polls on different matters, and especially in regard to religion, highly accurate and influential, released a survey saying that the percentage of Americans citing no religion hits an all-time high. People who, in response to a survey, say they have no religion. It is now at 29%. In other words, as this article says, fewer than half of all U.S. adults pray daily. The story goes on to say that the secularizing shifts evident in American society so far in the 21st century show no signs of slowing. The latest Pew Research Center survey of the religious composition of the United States finds the religiously unaffiliated share of the public is 6 points higher than it was 5 years ago, 10 points higher than it was a decade ago. This article goes on to show that if this category that are called nones by those that measure these things, in other words, they have no religion, no affiliation with any denomination, they're called the nones, put together, they would represent the largest group, larger than any other religious grouping, however you would slice and dice it, in the United States. And so it's a significant figure. It is a telling figure of our culture and our times and where people are, and especially shocking as a result of the pandemic, people's fear and anxiety, where they are, and perhaps many are just abandoning faith and moving further away from a religion and not finding any comfort, encouragement, or solace within that. It is a disturbing figure, but it's also a sign of the times, and it's one of those signs to understand in the context of what the Bible tells us about the time of the end before Christ returns. In Luke 18 and verse 8, Jesus said, "When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?" Did that in the context of a parable about justice and justice for the those that are left out in society. Will he find faith on the earth? Well, if you take that and put it with what Paul says in 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verses 1 through 4, where Paul says that in the last days perilous times will come, and he lists a number of social problems, and the very last one that he says is that people will be lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. That is a point to consider. In light of what this Pew Research survey shows of a growing number of people that list themselves as among the nones, with no faith, no religion, don't pray, we want to make sure we're not in that category. But we also want to understand the culture, the times we're living in, and make sure that we're not caught up in that and that it takes us away from our relationship with God. SBT Daily. Join us next time.